Good evening, everybody. This is Dr. Myra Tatum Saucedo from the University of Texas Permian Basin, and I am talking to my American literature students online about the first paper coming up. Uh, I have revamped the prompt somewhat, so you need to look at the prompt in the module. There are several choices of what you can write about for the first paper. What you need to do is to analyze at least one work of some author in the course. So there's been a lot of poetry. I did add in Kate Chopin, The Awakening. So you have that and Daisy Miller. And you can compare Daisy Miller and Kate Chopin and the context of their times and the kind of mannerisms and things that went on that were acceptable by society. So, what you need to do is put whatever work you select into context. Um, give a little background, say how this was accepted or not accepted at the time of publication. In literature, that is known as reception. When someone says, how was something received? What was the reception? It was like, what did the people at that time, um, did they accept something or ignore it or be horrified by it or scandalized uh, by a work of an author that was just maybe too progressive for the times? So, if you like poetry a lot, I am recommending T.S. Eliot's The Love Song of J. Alfred Prufrock. Prufrock. I have always wanted to use this poem as a party trick. Uh, in other words, I would like to be able to stand up in a room and recite the entire poem um, without any notes or anything. Just do it and get through the entire poem by T.S. Eliot, The Love Song, if I could do it. Oh my gosh, that would be amazing. I mean, I have so many of the lines and words in my head from all these years. In the room, the women come and go talking of Michelangelo. Uh, I just love the way the words hang together and how it's an inner voice of somebody in their mind talking. Uh, this is kind of like this was written in 1915 by T.S. Eliot, considered a modernist. It's about isolation, questioning authority, alienation, feeling like an outcast or something. And ironically, I've studied British literature, and Virginia Woolf in 1941 passed away. And she was a poet and not so much a poet as a writer who wrote poetry within her prose, within her words. She wasn't a poet. She wrote uh, so so many things that were just amazing. A Room of One's Own, Shakespeare's Sister, uh, and I could go on, but she's British literature. But she wrote in stream of consciousness. She felt alienated and isolated by society. She thought about death a lot because of World War II coming up after World War One devastated everybody in England. One day she walked out with an apron with big pockets and put huge stones, almost boulder light, into her pockets and walked into a river and died by her own hand. Okay, um, so if you read Kate Chopin's uh, The Awakening, it has no happy ending It was like there was no happy ending for women during the times of the awakening, and this was close to New Orleans, Grand Isle, and women had to be at home during certain times of the day, like maybe 2 to 5 o'clock p.m. It's called at home, and you would be there and you would have tea and hors d'oeuvres and things like that, and people would come to visit you, and there would be a silver platter somewhere in the front of the house, and they would nicely, with gloves on their hands, drop their card like a business card. It was called a calling card then, into the silver tray, and you would collect those at the end of the day and see how popular you were. If one of the cards was folded on the corner, it meant that a person had put that card in there by themselves. If it wasn't folded, maybe their servant just brought it by and they didn't come to visit, they didn't come for tea. But here's my calling card, I thought it'd be kind of thing. And this was a boon for husbands to collect calling cards to see how popular his wife was, and how many women she knew that were connected to other businessmen in the community, so he could contact them and say, hey, hello, good to see you. My wife met your wife. Your wife came to see my wife, in greeting at an at home calling. Because women stayed at home. That's what they're supposed to do. They weren't supposed to work. They weren't supposed to get out in the real world. There was a domestic sphere, the private domestic sphere of the house and the family, and there was a public sphere for men to go out, go to bars. They could go to parties, they could do what they wanted, but the women had to be home, and dinner had to be ready, and the kids were all cleaned up and shiny and happy when the dad got home, no matter what was left of the mom. Um, of course, they did have help and maids and things like that, but some women were just not maternal. It was not for them. It was not for Kate Chopin. So I really like The Awakening, and I'm fixing up your modules right now. You will notice the next thing you have to read is The Awakening, and that is due like February 26th, something like that, at the end of the month. So you have time, but I think you should read it because you might want to write a paper on that in Daisy Miller, or if you want to go with T.S. Eliot, if you're really a hotshot poet, and I'm not. I'm good, but I'm not the person that created the poems in this course. That created the background. So, um, if you like T.S. Eliot and you want to write about a poem, there's also the Hollow Man that he wrote. The Wasteland is supposed to be so technically hard and challenging that most people tackle it at the graduate level, and I'm not even supposed to mention it. Well, there it is. I mentioned it. And if you're really good at poetry and you want to tackle that, I'm all in. Run things by me, run ideas by me for your paper. You have to really analyze a work or two, especially if you're comparing a couple of works. And Virginia Woolf is out. She's for British literature. I just had to bring her in. Sorry. One of those things, I'm reading Orlando and writing the paper on it, so I have Virginia Woolf on my mind. But just to show you, things crossed cultures. So there are other choices for your paper. Look at the prompt. The paper needs to be at least 4 pages to 5 pages in length with an additional works cited page. So at least 4 pages down to the bottom with an additional works cited page. So there you go, 5 pages, no cover page. It's in Modern Language Association style, MLA style, which you should have been doing in the discussion boards, and I'm looking at those to try to give you feedback on that right away. And citations. If you give background on somebody, please get the background from the textbooks. Please do not go to A&E, history.com, encyclopedias, Spark Notes, anything that summarizes and does the work for you and gives you the ideas and tell you this is what this is about. This is the theme. This is the genre. This is the category, whatever. Because then there's no point in you trying to think critically. If you let someone else do it for you, it's also dishonesty and plagiarism. You have to credit those people, and I don't want to see credits to freeessays.com. And that's actually happened. Students say, "Yeah, I didn't write any of this. Here's my citation. Here's where I got the essay. Somebody else wrote it. Is that okay?" No, never. Uh, and it's really sad. But it's kind of the era that we live in, where you copy things on Facebook and share posts and share everything, and then you get into academia at the university level, and suddenly you have to cite and attribute and give credit to everybody whose words and ideas that you are talking about. If it's not your ideas alone, your words, then you have to credit somebody else. So I have a citation workshop in the modules, and it will add 10 extra credit points to any quiz. It's in Modern Language Association style. It's a fun workshop. It was interactive, but now it's just recorded. But you can learn a lot from it and get extra credit in the process. And it's definitely worth taking and worth doing. So I would like to read you from T.S. Eliot, different things, but I won't because the video's going on too long and I got to spool it up and get it to you pretty quick. So I might do that in another uh, video if I feel like waxing eloquently. And so, okay, so that should give you some hints on paper 4, and I will see if I can find some student example sample papers uh, to put in the modules so you get an idea of what the paper should look like and the kind of contents it should have. I will do that. I will do that in the next few minutes, and I will see you in the next video.